Hey. All right, we got a Big Daddy Endless in here. Hell yeah.
How do I sound?
Hey,
Awesome. I got worried for a sec.
Yeah.
My interface wasn't responding, but I had to just unplug it and plug it back in. How you guys doing?
Trying to
doing well.
prevent my computer from being on the precipice of disaster on my end.
Are you either of you live yet?
Oh yeah, I've been live.
Okay.
Basically, we've been going over the history of Food Not Bombs and just checking out some different things.
Cool.
Just on the subject, just because it's always something really neat to learn about, and I want to just teach people what Food Not Bombs is about before we go into it. So
I feel you.
yes, antithesis, throwing out the shout outs for Endless Cemetery and Frakkle.
Thank you.
And Frakkle, I don't want to, brush aside what you said before, but I do hope that things work out. And is there a fund that people can donate to if they want to help you out?
Oh, no, no, no. Well, yes, donate to Food Not Bombs, whatever your local chapter is.
I gotcha.
But no, I was, just sharing that to kill time before we got started. So.
I'm sorry.
All
my
good.
my autistic ass totally misread that.
It's all good.
Oh goodness. So yes, wonderful, wonderful Poggers Party people with me tonight on the first interview of our activist interview series. We have the esteemed, the magnificent, the wonderful Frakkle and Endless Cemetery. So how are both of y'all doing? Let's get some introductions in.
Why don't you go first, Frackle?
Sure, sure. I am Frakkle. I am an activist down in Orlando, Florida. I work with Food Not Bombs. Also, have been connected with Aston Mack with Orlando Freedom Fighters. Through him, I've been working with Coalition for Black Women down here as well.
Nice.
But yeah,
Badass.
the the first like actual touching grass activism that I got involved in, aside from protesting, was Food Not Bombs, and I think it's just as a opening statement, I think it's an excellent starting point for actually getting out and doing the work. It's something that's very, very accessible.
Absolutely.
For sure.
And yeah. And now next we have Endless Cemetery.
I'm Endless Cemetery. I'm just kind of hanging out here in Baltimore. I'm just black dude, worker. I guess you could describe me as like an anarcho-communist. I I don't necessarily, I wouldn't necessarily say I work with specifically any organizations just because I am way too busy and introverted. But I have organizations that I support, that I try to do fundraisers for, and that I try to shine a light on whenever I can. Obviously, Baltimore Food Not Bombs. It was more of a thing before I knew what Food Not Bombs was politically or anything like that. I just had friends that did it that I trusted, that I knew were based. So I got put onto it. I did an interview with Gary, who is one of the people who cooks and serves food and stuff every Saturday. He says he's at the church cooking up. Did an interview with him when we did the Food Not Bombs fundraiser. Technically speaking, my first like touch grass type of like activism, I guess, type stuff was I was in middle school and my mom really wanted to do here in Baltimore. We had something called there was a woman by the name of B. Gaddy, and every Thanksgiving she would have Thanksgiving dinner as like a mutual aid type of deal where if you were unhoused or didn't have family or really anything like that anywhere in the city, it doesn't matter who, where, what you are, just come get a plate at her house with her family. And my mom would of course like buy all the canned goods and stuff, but we would go there and I would set tables, just like the long tables and stuff for the people to come through. And beyond that was my background is a little bit in like hacktivism. So during Occupy Wall Street, rather, there was various stuff happening that maybe I'll talk about some other time with a lot of the sheriff's departments and their websites around the country and stuff. But
Brilliant.
yeah, a lot of that was just being in the streets and listening. You know what I mean? People had tents and stuff set up, and it was my first experience with like kind of direct action, like a mass movement like that, like people all coming together in an area to signal boost specific ideas, even if it was kind of in the grand scheme of things pretty disorganized and didn't change a terrible whole lot. It was cool getting to actually meet a lot of those people who were involved in that stuff in the area. So
Yeah, I feel that. And so I appreciate both of y'all sharing your backgrounds, just because I think it's important just with my motivation for starting up this interview series is,
thank you, Calico.
I've kind of been seeing how like political Twitch has been developing over the past couple of years, and it hasn't been developing in a productive way, I think.
To say the least.
So one of the things that I wanted to do is speak with activists who are involved in, touch grass on the ground work all around the country, just to get their perspectives, get their thought processes while they're doing this, and just find out how people can get involved. Because one of the things I actually talked about in the first part of this stream is that when it comes to what activism actually is, and both of y'all can share your thoughts on this, but there's a difference between demonstrations and protest.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I was wondering, first of all, if either of you understood the distinction.
If I had to hazard a guess, I would say that a demonstration was kind of like, just from my experience over the last couple of years with, George Floyd and Breonna Taylor type thing, I would say that a demonstration is both can be planned like ahead of time and really, really structured. But when I think of a demonstration, I think of kind of like a one-time thing that's there to draw attention, get eyeballs, make the point, and then everybody kind of disperses. But with a protest, it's kind of just like we're here until this thing gets done or we can't do it anymore type vibes. I don't know if that's anything close to...
No, it actually is. You actually hit the nail on the head there, because as you said last year, God, time flies, 2020, with the George Floyd protests, those were more demonstrations in the general sense, because those are, short-term marches, short-term, protests. Hey, Jason Societa. Hello. Can we get a shout out for Jason, please? Thank you. But demonstrations are more short term, just to get eyeballs on a certain topic and raise awareness. But
what up, Ryan?
That's where you get a lot of people coming out, taking pictures of them, of themselves at a demonstration, and then never coming back again. Whereas if you have a prolonged protest, and this is something that we learned in Food Not Bombs, or rather in the video that we were watching about the origins of Food Not Bombs, one of the things that we learned is that, a prolonged protest essentially lasts over a much longer period of time, and it's a sustained effort, basically. It involves a lot more planning, and people can volunteer when they can, how they can. But, it's just keeping up that momentum to push a policy and change forward.
Right, you're kind of touching on foundationally what Food Not Bombs is like technically trying to point out through its actions. Like it's not just about building a parallel sort of power structure for providing food, which certainly that's important, but it's about pointing out the absurdity of how much food goes to waste while people are hungry when we do have the means at hand today, right now, without increasing production or anything, to resolve
Exactly,
that.
Brainstopper.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Brainstopper also said that a demonstration is also a really good way of meeting like-minded people, and I would agree with that as well.
Yeah. I definitely agree, Rainstopper. That's a great addition to that. Because I haven't done an activist effort. I haven't done an activism in a long time. Just because I haven't really found an opportunity to. But what I wanted to ask y'all first of all is
Nashville protests. I'll check that
share
out.
with me your war stories. Tell me a little bit about some of the efforts that you've worked on in the past, and just share your personal experiences.
Ooh, this is fun. Hey, hang on. Before we do this, how long ago was Occupy? 20? Okay, yeah. All right, yeah, I can talk about that.
Yeah, statutes of limitations has passed already.
Oh, of course. That's the first thing that came to mind.
Yeah.
Of course.
So, the first thing is always like
Come on, Aziz Cat.
I joke about it a lot, and one of the main things that I try to impress with my platform is that the police are not your friends at the very least, if we're not going all the way to abolition vibes, to at least understand that the purpose that police serve in society is not to serve and protect the public. And one of those things is that's kind of easy to, it's in your face, but you don't really think about it. The fact that no matter what the issue is, no matter what point in history we're talking about, the police are literally always on the wrong side of history. Whether we're talking about labor movements, civil rights, queer demonstrations and protests, like it's literally always the police coming in to beat the shit out of everybody and make everybody go back to normal, right?
It's what they were foundationally tasked to do.
Right.
Well, exactly.
So
They were tasked to protect property interests
and
in
capital.
in the North and South. Yeah.
Yeah. So the main thing they're going to be your primary enemy no matter what you're doing, no matter what level it is of leftism, liberalism, whatever it is you think you're doing. They will be
Oh yeah.
they will antagonize you at every turn. And that was actually what we did in 2011. That's what one of the things we started off doing was not me, someone that I know that I am no longer in contact with.
Mendelus Blemetary.
Yeah, my friend Evil Endless Cemetery with the Groucho Marx mustache and the unibrow. This guy, this weirdo, for whatever reason, he saw that Food Not Bombs in Florida, and you might actually know about this, Frakkle. Do you remember when the police, I think it was the Blaine County Sheriff's Department came and like destroyed their tables and started arresting people?
Yes, I mean there were two major instances of it. One in 2011, one in 2014.
Yeah, this was in 2011.
Yeah. That's when it was just made illegal here to feed people.
Yeah,
Like,
right.
yeah,
Yeah,
That's
literally.
straight up.
Yeah. So in response to that, what Schmendless Schmemetary did was he defaced the Blaine County Sheriff's Department's website so that the diversion program page would say smoke weed every day, and the sheriff himself, his resume was on there. Like his actual resume was on there, like his credentials as an officer and a veteran and shit. We just changed it to all say being a bitch ass cop.
Wow, nice.
And then when they finally figured out how to fix it and lock us out of it, we just started DDoSing it.
Oh, beautiful.
So the site was down for a solid 2 weeks at least that I'm aware of, allegedly.
So I
Yeah.
have to jump in because I'm being distracted by Baldwin Ghost's comment. Just because it's what I'm actively researching right now.
Oh, of course.
So the first police forces, as we know of police, were designed. When I say they were designed to like subjugate the population, they were like created out of the mind of Sir Robert Peel out in the UK. This is after the Napoleonic Wars. This is in an impoverished Ireland, which has no economic, opportunity there. They were seen as a separate race for all intents and purposes. And
Yes.
the UK, fearing losing another colony, decided we need some solution to this. We need to remove their ability to reject the consent to be governed, which is what the sheriff system was allowing. They were not paying taxes, they were ignoring the laws, etc. They were just vibing and protesting and such. So they said, okay, the community run policing is not working. Sheriffs are not working. So we're going to create the Peace Preservation Force, which is just such a horribly ironic name, but it always is with police. And this group went in, and their job was to crack skulls on behalf of the state. It was the first time that the power differential in law enforcement swung massively from communities enforcing laws to the state enforcing laws. And in the course of that, it really did destruct the concept of consent to be governed, because you no longer can say, no, we aren't going to arrest that guy because, we as a community don't think he did anything wrong. At that point, the state just does things, and it's basically just a military force tasked with counterinsurgency.
Yeah.
And yeah, you're probably thinking of the formation of the Chicago police, which are based on this initial inception. Like this creation then was exported around the world as this is a new way that empire can police its people without fearing uprisings. And that's why you see them at every protest. That's why you see them at every social movement, because their job is to prevent people from dissenting against the state. Their job is to subjugate, to be a counterinsurgent force. And that implies that all of the population is our potential insurgents. And that's, as Endless has always said, like they are an occupying army. Literally, they are from their foundational roots.
Oh, for sure. Because, when it was exported to America, with the founding of the police forces in the North, Baldwin, they looked out for like merchants' interests specifically, because even from the founding of the United States, it's always been about, basically reinforcing business interests on a statewide level. So having the police forces imported from jolly old England is actually a logical conclusion there. And then, of course, in the South, y'all know how that developed, because property interests were a little different down there.
What we considered property was a little different.
Yes.
The reason why I let off that way is because all of my worst stories involve the police when it comes to anything, when it's like just partying and vibing, or in 2020 when the main thing that because this was how I got my start politically. Thank you for the raid, Thay. Excuse me. So I just absolutely destroyed this fucking pizza.
There you go.
So that's food, not bombs for you. So the thing that I had learned from the 2015 Freddie Gray uprising that took place here in Baltimore that because I actually talked about this last night on stream, that the police will spin a narrative and the media will run with that narrative and not do any of the things that they claim to do, which is, like investigative journalism. They just are straight up a mouthpiece for the police.
Oh, for sure.
So, what happened was, I'm sorry.
If I remember correctly, the Freddie Gray uprising anniversary, that was yesterday, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's what I thought.
Yeah, I talked about it because the thing that gets lost in the whole spectacle of it was that the whole thing was started by the police. And I don't just mean like, obviously the police killed Freddie Gray in cold blood and all the shady things surrounding that, but I mean what was called the rioting, quote unquote, was literally because the police showed up in riot gear that morning and then cut off all exits for those students. They showed up at this this high school and then shut down the trains, shut down the buses to the point where they were actually going onto the buses and making the kids get off and stand out in this area, which is at least a solid 2-3 miles from where a lot of these kids lived, and then corralled them into the area, kettled them into the area where we would later see all the news stations and such flying overhead showing the scenes of, kids throwing bricks and bottles and all that stuff. When the rumor also, colloquially, little local apocrypha, beyond the police kettling them and doing that first, the rumor is also that the police were the first ones to throw bricks and bottles and that sort of thing. And then, of course, once you do it back, then that's all the reason that they need to do whatever they want. So when I went out for the Freddie Gray protests, I already knew what time it was as far as that. So my main mission was to cop watch, basically. I would go out there right before curfew. I mean, like 30 minutes before curfew, to the point where a lot of the liberals, because the second day I was out there was one of the most frustrating times for me, because a lot of the libs, or as Aston Mack would say, shout out to Aston Mack, shout out to the brother Aston, but as he would say, the tourists showed up. So it was people who were, the police would be taking a knee and putting a black power fist up, and they were taking photo ops and stuff, and everybody was cheering. And I was like, what the fuck are you cheering for? They're going to start beating the shit out of us in 45 minutes. And the girl standing next to me was like, what are you talking about? What do you mean? And I was like, look, back there, you can literally see the riot cops showing up now. They already have the shields and helmets and shit. There's still tear gas on the ground from last night, like 30 feet from where we're standing. And these people were just like completely clueless. And it was like clockwork. Like as soon as fucking 8 o'clock hit and the sun went down, all hell would break loose. The police would go hog wild. And like the people who were not used to that they had no idea how to handle it. They would just run like everywhere. It would be complete chaos every night. And I would have to go because the narrative is, of course, we're rioting, we're looting. And I did a drive-through of the area where we were. Like, look, this is the red light district. This is, if you watch The Wire, this is Amsterdam. There ain't shit here to loot. It's all fucking abandoned. Or it's strip clubs. There's like one fucking artisanal, like fucking like gluten-free coffee shop here. And I promise you they were untouched. Right?
Oh, yeah.
So the worst thing that actually happened physically to me during that was I was in the mix. I was like on the front line between the protesters who were like on their knees with their hands up saying, hands up, don't shoot. And the police beating the shit out of them with batons and shield bashing them and stuff. And someone shot off a tear gas canister. And the noise from that, like the pop, I guess someone thought was a gunshot or something. So the crowd immediately just starts going nuts. And everybody's running. And I wasn't looking where I was running because I was trying to hold the camera. I was live on this channel.
Oh, yeah.
And I tripped and fell. And there was a split second where I thought, fuck, like, this is it. This is how I die. I'm about to get trampled. I'm about to get seriously hurt, like, somehow. This is something bad is about to happen. But people actually stopped in the middle of everything to help me up off the ground. Like 5 feet away from us, police are bashing people in the head and shit, and they are stopping to help me up off the ground. And that was a pretty fucking nuts moment. And maybe like an hour or so after that, my phone died, so that's when I got the fuck up out of there. But it was important to me to show, first of all, the police are instigating. They always instigate. They literally showed up here, like only one side of this showed up here ready for a riot, right? So when the riot happened, it only makes sense to blame that on one party, right? But also the fact that since the media runs with that, I got to show people, number one, we're not rioting and looting because you could see the protesters. That wasn't what we're here for. Number two, even if that's what we came here to do, there's nothing here that we could do that with. And number three, the police are always brutal. They're always abusing their authority. And all of this is always literally 100% their fault. So.
And I do actually want to touch on something that you brought up, because police brutality is actually a really big problem at a lot of these protests, and even in demonstrations. Let's not even limit it to protests, but demonstrations as well. And from what I remember from the Black Lives Matter demonstrations in 2020, there was one event in Richmond where it wasn't even curfew, and the police just started like lighting people up with tear gas, rubber bullets, etc., and arresting people in mass, even though they were there just protesting, demonstrating, as they're constitutionally allowed to do. So one of the important things that I think a lot of people don't realize is that one of the important roles that you can take up at things like this is the role of a legal observer or of a police watcher. And so, you know, you've just talked about your experience with being a legal observer / a cop watcher. You know, I don't want to conflate the two if they're slightly different, but I mean, they're basically there to make sure that people's constitutional rights aren't fucked, and just to keep the police accountable in whatever way they can. You know, so that's one way that you can really get involved, and that's one of the roles that people can take in things like that. And Frakkle, I was wondering if you had similar experiences to that, or if you have any spicy stories you wanted to share.
So, before I get into that, I actually want to talk a little bit about the history of even the concept of riots, because that being viewed as a, you know, de facto bad thing is a relatively new concept. Riots have long been a way to express that you are not content with the way the government is handling things, with the fact that you're impoverished and your community is massively unemployed, that you have poor living conditions, etc. I mean, countries have been founded on the backs of riots. Like, it's the idea that now they're just bad. They discredit an entire movement is a new concept, and it's a very insidious one. It's one that is rooted in propaganda. Like, it's the pro police position.
COINTELPRO vibes.
Yeah, absolutely. So I wanted to touch on that because I think that's a very important concept, because like doing some sort of demonstration, doing some sort of action, even ramping it up to breaking shit, is a form of people power that, I mean, people against the state have very few avenues to express discontent. And if you say, oh, just go to the ballot box, well, that clearly doesn't just solve things. Like, most major social change has come on the backs of things that are classified as very violent demonstrations. That's women's suffrage. That's the civil rights movement. That's
Bel Air Mountain.
Yeah, exactly. Just all of these things. Any sort of inch gained in human rights requires actually being like disruptive.
Direct action.
Yeah. But so yeah, that's just an aside that I wanted to touch on. Stonewall is a great example. Yeah.
Oh, Stonewall, yeah. Like the civil right, the way that black people even got the right to vote. Like the colloquial wisdom is that Martin Luther King Jr. did and said some stuff, then he got killed, and the government felt so bad that they changed. But like, there was like 2 weeks worth of riots after Martin Luther King Jr. got assassinated until they were finally like, okay, we have to do something. These people are like, we have to do something for them.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And, honestly, you bring up the civil rights movement and you bring up the suffrage movements, those are perfect examples, I think, of prolonged protest movements because they have a goal in mind and it's just nonstop organizing, holding events, getting arrested, everything that would involve, trying to get some kind of change effectuated. And so
I feel like that's also kind of important to point out,
Yeah.
since we're talking about the police too, is that like you're going to get arrested. Like that's going to happen.
Yeah.
Now, what happens to you after that, there's variance there, but in terms of what you think of when you think of getting arrested, like the police putting you in handcuffs, throwing you in the back of a van or whatever, and taking you off to jail, that's going to happen. Depending on how deep you get into it, but that's the consequence of what we're doing. We understand that, right? Where for a protest, just like you were saying, we're doing the thing until either the demands are met or everybody's in jail. And even still, once everybody's in jail, we're figuring out how to do it from jail. So it's like, just like with the civil rights movement. And that's why if you go to protests, you become a habitual protest enjoyer, I guess. One of the
Right.
one of the main things that they tell you to do is take a Sharpie and write your contact information on like your thigh or your inner arm or something like that. That's not going to get sweaty or rub off because they're going to take your phone. They're going to take everything you have on you, and you're going to need to call someone to come pick you up.
You're going to want to call one of these nerds.
Yeah, call
in addition,
the superior Kevin.
Not the superior Kevin. Stop.
If you
must
happen
correct
to, be involved in a, more organized sort of protest movement, you might even actually have a chapter of a bail fund and
A jail solidarity.
Jail solidarity. Yeah. The one that I like to support a lot is called National Bailout. But there's a number of them out there.
Yep.
Have you done work with them before?
A little bit. Haven't been able to, start making direct traction, but I want to talk to Aston about this some more, actually, about getting a Orlando chapter going in more serious, because actually running a bail fund is really, really important for keeping people in their houses, in their jobs, connected with their family.
Yep.
Because otherwise, if you can't get bailed out, you can be arrested despite having no actual charges they can land on you. You can be completely innocent of all crimes, and you can lose everything.
Yep.
And that is part of the carceral system.
Yep.
Well, I mean, seriously, that's how. Because I've heard horror stories of people losing their jobs.
Oh, yeah.
From being stuck in the carceral system and waiting for their day in court. And, with as many people as I saw getting arrested during the Black Lives Matter demonstrations, it was wild. It was absolutely wild that it did not matter in the slightest as to whether, it was somebody that was exercising their First Amendment rights or not. They were getting thrown in the slammer.
Oh, yeah.
33% of our prison population are pretrial detentions.
Yep.
People who have not actually been convicted.
They just don't have enough money to bail out.
Exactly.
I actually was, being from Maryland, as close as I am to DC, I had a lot of friends who were in the J20 trial. For people who don't know about that, it was January 20th, 2017. Donald Trump's inauguration. There was going to be a demonstration in DC, kind of protesting his inauguration. And what ended up happening is, through uncertain means, you probably know what my feeling on this is, given my feelings on the police. But somehow or another, a car window got broken, so everyone started getting kettled, everyone got arrested, and Trump had pushed a bunch of legal stuff through, so where everyone involved was charged with a felony. And I did a few benefit shows in the band that I was in at the time, because we had to raise money to help all these people fight their cases, because there was like I said, it was a bunch of my friends, like people my age, so just like service industry workers and like, you know what I mean, people who would be ruined by any amount of jail time longer than like a couple of days, right? So it was a pretty gnarly time. My one of my old roommates was actually the last person to get their charges dropped because of that. And
oh shit.
Yeah, it was a situation with him like trying to find jobs and stuff because he was technically charged with a felony. But it was some kind of like civil defense lawyer, I think, that took everyone's case like collectively and got everybody's charges dropped and everything. But I remember for a while, because the dude that I lived with was one of the J20 protesters, and we were trying to figure out for a minute, because it wasn't even just him, right? Obviously, his job and his living situation would be fucked if he went to jail for 10 years, 20 years, whatever. But then we would be fucked too, because we have a room to fill at that point. Like, the two of us couldn't just cover his end of the rent. So it was like, yeah, it was a whole thing, but it ended up working out in the end. Rarely. I'm lucky enough to have never been arrested. I'm lucky enough to have never been arrested anything involved politically. I've definitely been hassled and arrested and shit before, but just for dumb shit, not even for anything cool.
I mean, yeah, I can understand that though, because the police love hassling black folks for no reason.
Yep.
So
antithesis, I wanted to say this. No questions or comments are stupid. None of them.
We appreciate all. Just trust me, the amount of psychic damage that I incur every time I open the Bird app. You have not asked a single stupid question. I promise. I love these questions and comments. Love them. These are what I want.
Yeah.
Well, exactly. Hello, non-binary superpowers. And Frakkle, you were starting to say something?
Yeah. So to the original question that you had aimed at me. So it was, for me, that was actually what getting involved in, protests and stuff here in the aftermath of George Floyd was what really woke me up and shook me from being a dumb white liberal to a slightly less dumb white leftist and an actual abolitionist, because
seaweed.
I had always kind of bought into the line that, cops can't be that bad.
Shout out to seaweed.
But no, like when you actually see it, when you are the target of it, even because tear gas has a way of like it radicalizes you real fast.
I'm sure.
It's all good.
I'm sure.
It hits different. The first time you get tear gas, it hits a little different.
Oh, it does. But it was wild because, Endless knows he's been in the trenches a fair bit longer than I have. But it was weird.
Prison does the same thing.
It was completely surreal to me. I was one of those people he was describing who just didn't see it coming, didn't know what to expect, who saw this is a peaceful protest. Things are going fine. The cops are over there, but they're not doing anything. And then it was just nothing happened. And then suddenly everyone
Here
was
you go,
under
take some
attack.
seaweed.
It was turned on a dime like
I
that.
got the
There was
wasabi
nothing
joints.
that changed. But all of a sudden we were a dangerous riot. Like it was completely blindsiding.
Yeah. And something that I think some of the hazards that people pick up on in getting involved on the ground in grassroots work is the threat of being arrested by the police. So I guess my next question for both of you, if it's something that we haven't already answered, is, how would you assuage people, or, God damn it, let me not use those fancy $5 words. How do you put
SAT
people's
words.
minds at ease? I know, right? Fucking SAT words. Like, how do you put people's minds at ease when it comes to the topic of possibly getting arrested in terms of doing or getting involved in a long-term protest like that?
It really depends on you got to speak to their conditions. For me, I feel like where people in lower class are easy to talk to about that kind of shit because it's Tuesday for them, right? Like going to jail is like whatever. Like I said, me personally, I got radicalized in jail myself, so it's like if I'm gonna get arrested for a fucking traffic violation, then hell yeah, I'll get arrested. Pushing for something I believe in, right?
Oh,
But
yeah.
like, but as far as like, your liberals and like middle class people and people that have never even seen the inside of a squad car or whatever, the thing that I try to tell them is, there's definitely points, at least in my experience, where you can tell everyone's about to get arrested, right? And me personally, I try to tell those people to stick close to me because, like I've said, I've had the luxury and the fortune, knock on wood, to have never been arrested at a protest or a demonstration because you have to tell people basic just protest stuff like wear comfortable clothes, wear clothes that you would be fine with running for extended periods of time in, right? Because you're probably going to. And
Yeah.
that's what it is. Once you start noticing the police like phalanx line moving in a specific direction, you be aware of your surroundings. You say, "Oh, there's only one way out of this area," right? That's when you start to maybe make a little bit of decisions concerning your tactical retreat, right? But
For sure.
beyond that, it's just convincing people that the reason why we're all out here is because we're all in this together, and they're gonna put us in a cage. They're gonna try to beat us down, but we're always gonna be together no matter what. And at the end of the day, you will be fine, right? Especially, it's like I was saying, if you're higher up in the class ladder, like your parents are gonna come get you. You know what I mean? Whatever is gonna happen, they got nothing on us. They're just following protocol. They got to put us somewhere because they can't just leave us on the street, right? So maybe worst case scenario, you catch a disorderly, like some kind of like public disruption charge that it's probably your first offense. It's only a misdemeanor. You're going to get a probation before judgment if you even see a judge, right? It's going to be
Right.
fine. You're going to spend a night or two in jail at the most, and yeah, it's just antithesis. It's the camaraderie. You have to. The main thing, like I said, the reason why we're out there, and the one thing you have to impress upon people is that we're all doing this together, and that means that if we're going all the way with it, then we're all going all the way with it together.
Now,
For sure.
so I do have to touch on one thing because this question has become significantly more complicated in Florida. The DeSantis's bill, the anti-protest bill, has been extremely effective at chilling protest movements here.
For sure.
Where any
Satan.
any group of like 10 or more people can be classified as a riot. A riot is instantly classified as a felony, 5-year minimum prison sentence. Like it's absolutely buck wild. There's no way that
Exactly,
it's
Rain Stopper.
constitutional, but it hasn't been overturned either. So it's a very strange new calculus. I'm also extremely concerned that other states will see that it has been successful in Florida at silencing people and try and copy it. But yeah, to echo one of the things Endless mentioned, one of the sad observations
Exactly, Wither King.
that I can definitely mirror is if you are, middle class white guy, while, if they do arrest you, you are likely to just be bailed out without issue. They're also typically not even targeting you. I've
This is true.
at least down here, like they're like they do, that those kinds of arrests do get made, but it actually is fairly less common. But there's another point as well, which is, this is especially true. I think it needs to be mentioned that protesting also isn't the only action people can take.
True.
And there's a lot of people who can't, like straight up are unable to, and that's legit. There are many other methods of providing support. Like that's the that's the front line. That's the like actually bashing on the shield wall sort of thing. But actually, it requires a lot of support elsewhere and education and social like teaching elsewhere.
There's a lot of moving parts that are all equally important, not just the people on the front lines.
Yeah, yeah. And there's another thing that I've kind of been reading about a little bit, that like protests don't have to be like the whole city, or don't have to be a massive movement, don't have to be a just general demonstration. You can do a more localized protest, just like maybe within your company, within your neighborhood, of which is much more controlled.
Yeah.
But is still a demonstration that is still carrying the message forward.
Yep.
So those are a couple things as well that should be taken into consideration.
Absolutely, because I think one of the things that struck out at me when we were looking at foodnotbombs.net, foodnotbombs.net, I think that's what it was, is that they listed a lot of the different ways that you can get involved with the organization. And Frakkle, if you could please send that link to Antithesis, then she'll be able to post it in chat.
Nice.
But basically, one of the things that really struck out to me, and that speaks to what you're saying, Frakkle, is just the fact that in getting involved with Food Not Bombs, that, not only involves like going to the events and potentially getting arrested by the police, but thank you, foodnotbombs.net. That's right. So, and apparently there's a new site. I see. Okay. So, not only is there going to the events where you get arrested on the front lines, but there's also just many different other things that you can do for the group, whether it be just going around the city and handing homeless people, meals that they may need, or
Right.
Cooking the food, sourcing the ingredients for the food and bringing them over to Food Not Bombs, cooking, cleaning the kitchens.
I saw people
making pamphlets.
It was like my second or third day out there before the police started doing stuff. But like when it was during the day, because of how hot it was and everything, there was people just handing out water bottles and like bags of like peanuts and stuff like that. Like it doesn't even have to be super complicated like meals like what Gary does with Food Not Bombs. You could legit just like go to like Sam's Club or something, get like a 30-pack of water and just start handing it out. Like even that type of stuff is crucial, like super crucial.
Yeah. So what our organization does, and my specific route each week, is we have secured an agreement with a local Publix here, and we're looking to expand that to pick up everything from their bakery that is just hit its expiration date. And that comes out
Uh-huh.
to 2 to 3 shopping carts completely full
Wow.
every single day that we
Whoa.
then carry
Is
out
that
to.
the sell by date or the actual expiration date?
That's the sell by date.
Oh wow, so that's good
They
food,
can't stop. They're going to pitch it into the like trash
but it's still
because
good
they can't
food.
sell it. It's
Yeah.
still great. Yeah, for like weeks after that. So
Yeah.
we pick it up, we distribute it to different food banks, and just there's a few places where the unhoused and such gather that I stop at. There's actually a guy that I started seeing regularly while I was driving the route and was stopping. And I asked him, like, do you know any other unhoused people? Because I always see you out here like every single day. I drive this every single day. If you know other people, and you want to distribute, or if you can get them here. So he's now like part of the distribution network and feels great about it. But so yeah, like that's what we're doing. In addition to sometimes there's like food prep, like Endless was talking about as well, like more formal events. But that's just our kind of daily routine is this pickup and delivery.
Yeah, and I mean that's definitely part of what was brought up by Food Not Bombs too, and I think that's so important just to realize, like, for something like that, it may seem like something very simple and straightforward, but not enough people really think about that when, you know,
I,
donating to food pantries or things like that.
yeah, I wanna touch on I think the string that you're trying to pull at, which is
Thank you.
what I'm talking about is one bakery at a single grocery store. Just the bakery department is generating 2 to 3 shopping carts of waste per day. Now, if we could seize every single grocery institution, every
Oh yeah.
single restaurant that's about to throw their food in the trash, like that's
That would be a game changer. Like just the off of the fundraiser that I did with Gary. Gary told me that was supplies for them for like 2-3 months.
yeah.
Oh hell yeah.
And literally the only thing that's needed to capture more and more of that food waste and put it to use is man hours. Is just people actually volunteering, getting involved, and being available because that's the only bandwidth that Food Not Bombs has as this decentralized network working on this problem is the people to do it. And it doesn't have to be all day every day. Like if more people are involved, you have more load, distributed, then you can just be you put in your 4 to 6 hours a week, but then someone has, the next day, someone has the next day,
Yep.
etc. And it's just yeah.
And I think that's an incredibly important point that you touch on because one of the things that one of the things that I really started to think about in getting this project started is thinking about the policy behind this kind of advocacy and what people hope to accomplish, as well as the general impact that they're having on their communities. Because in terms of the impact that groups like this make, obviously they want to try and aim to improve the material conditions of the neighborhood, area, town, city, state, country that they live in. So for some of the main groups that y'all work with, and you don't have to necessarily stay glued on to Food Not Bombs since both of y'all have worked with different groups, but what kind of impact have you both seen from the advocacy work that you've engaged in?
Just from the conversation I had with Gary, he has, and just the type of dude I know Gary is, and everything he talked about, I know that straight up lives have been saved by these organizations. Not even just in terms of like, feeding people and giving people something to look forward to, but like just being there as a person. Talk to them for 5 minutes while you make their plate or whatever. Like, the impact for me was like, it's easy when you're just kind of doing you and moving through life to think of it in abstract, like, cool, they're feeding unhoused people, whatever. I wonder how that actually works. But for me, the turnaround came, and my inspiration to do that was I watched a Second Thought YouTube video on mutual aid, and Gary and my friends were in that video, like feeding people. They had a table set up, like I could tell Gary had probably cooked all that food, and they were making people plates in this underpass. That's where all at that time, because they get moved around a lot by the police. But at that time, there was like a unhoused encampment there where everyone had their tents and stuff set up. So they went right there. You know what I mean? And we're handing out food and stuff. And when I saw that, and I started thinking about because he said he's been doing it for like 6 years, and I thought about all the people that I see in those areas, and some of them, like how unwell some of them are. It just really made me think, like, wow, there's people that are there that are literally only alive because of organizations like Food Not Bombs, Baltimore Community Fridge, like those types of kind of like decentralized and, I'm going to say anarchist, even though that's contentious because it has kind of a political bent to it. But just these things that, like, a lot of that ethic and a lot of that stuff gets dismissed as like anarchy or whatever on both sides, right? By the liberals and by the communists or whatever. But it's like anytime that I've seen political action get done in terms of having a direct impact on the material conditions of like the most vulnerable people in the area, it's always the anarchists and it's always that kind of stuff. And that's just been my perspective in seeing that, like, these are the people walking the walk, not just talking the talk, because it's one thing to, and I also believe in like diversity of tactics, so I'm not going to shit on any of this, but like it's one thing for people to be like, vote for this person, or I'm running for this position in office, or I'm doing this, whatever. But there has to be that gap that's bridged between the political action in these ivory towers and the people who are just hungry and fucked up on the streets. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
So, one of the things that as you were talking, Endless, that I really wanted to hit on actually is on that page that Antithesis just linked as well, which is the Food Not Bombs mission. The way it's phrased is, or the way that it phrases this part of it is, they say, one aspect of our mission is to help make the invisible poverty more visible. Your meal is not a Food Not Bombs meal if you don't provide literature and display a banner. Otherwise, the public will think you're a church and have the impression your group believes that our political and economic system is fine and that all we need to do is care for those who are not able to make it.
That's crucial.
We're not a charity. We're seeking to build a movement to end the exploitation of the economic and political system. If you're not interested in changing society...
That was something that was heavily emphasized. That's right.
Yeah. We're seeking to end hunger and poverty, not just feed it. That's
fucking awesome, Rainstopper. That's crucial as fuck.
To the
that's
mission
so fucking based.
Is while yes, it's great to have that immediate impact, it is also, it's trying to build that solidarity, trying to build that movement towards actually solving the problem, and not allowing this to continue to be the status quo. The end goal of Food Not Bombs is to remove the need for Food Not Bombs.
Right.
Yes, exactly. Right. I mean, because that would be the logical conclusion of it, because I've heard a lot of common criticisms about how, essentially
That's
when
kind of what I was
you
doing,
think
just
of
like
charity in general,
ordering food
charity
on the
is only
internet and
really
stuff.
seen as a band-aid, a temporary fix to a long-standing issue.
Right.
And so one of the things that capitalism encourages is charity, because it's continuing to put that band-aid over larger issues that the system itself creates, and people get to feel good about themselves. Now, charity isn't bad, but it's not the answer in terms of changing people's material conditions, like what we're talking about with Food Not Bombs and things like that.
Mhm.
Earth says it's a big problem. A society that makes more food than required to feed its population, yet still has people going hungry. There are big changes needed, and that's absolutely
Oh,
right.
absolutely correct. Yeah.
Based Earth as always. Based. And, something that hit me there, Frakkle, is basically that with Food Not Bombs, the kind of impact that it's having on society, and the kind of impact that it's having in terms of changing the material conditions, is that it's literally saving people's lives and is trying to make itself irrelevant,
Yeah.
because the mission is there to, make it so that the invisible and forgotten populations in America and around the world, uh, have more eyes put on them, so that policymakers will actually will actually be forced to make a difference to, make their lives better and improve their material conditions.
Yeah, there's actually in addition to doing the food distribution work, like a lot of it is about like pushing the literature, having the conversations.
Yep.
There's one of the stops that I make is this one stop where some work crews, primarily Black and Latino, gather to try and pick up some labor from like a Home Depot or something. And I, for a while, was just stopping to distribute food, but then also started engaging once, one of them started really recognizing me and being more friendly, started engaging in more lengthy conversations. And now there's this little kind of pocket of people who are getting pretty on board with socialist leanings
That's building
and
dual
that
power.
sort of political mindset.
Building dual power.
Yeah, yeah.
Hell yes.
Because now when I make that stop, we all enjoy a little bit of lunch together and talk about stuff and ruminate about stuff. So it's good. It's good.
Thank you, Fluff.
And honestly, I think...
Sorry, which also
Oh, no.
sparks another thought to me, which is even outside of some of these, more formal organization things, there is another form of activism that I think is undervalued, and that is bringing your politics into your hobbies, whether
Yes.
that is book clubs, whether that is, your tabletop RPG group, whether that's, whatever. Actually be willing to have deeper conversations with the people around you and be willing to challenge their ideas and push them towards the world that you want to build, because it's only going to happen when society reaches critical mass and actually says, okay,
We get our 100th monkey.
we want this change now.
Right.
And everything stops until we get it.
Yeah.
And that's exactly right, because I think, and I'm not trying to throw any shade intentionally, but I think a few people have issues, really broaching these types of conversations on a platform like Twitch, because I think that the concept of a political conversation is kind of lost in the goals that should really be at the forefront of, what people try to achieve. Like, because in terms of policy, whether it be, just basic things that y'all have been talking about, or even, just trying to have those conversations to change hearts and minds bit by bit, it isn't a zero-sum game where there's a winner and a loser, but you need to try and like have that meeting of the minds and actually build that connection where you can try and like just disseminate that idea, just get it out there and just, change hearts and minds slowly but surely, whether it be in a public forum or privately.
And it's one of those things where, like you were saying, it's hard to broach those topics. I feel like because you need to be able to appeal to, like, we keep saying it and keep harping on it, but it's the truth. Like, you need to be able to appeal to people's material conditions. Like, everybody wants a raise. Everybody wants more money. Everybody wants safety. Everybody wants to be less harassed by police, whatever, more freedom, whatever. So when you put things in those terms and you break down things as simply as possible, like on the doc I work with, there's people that are like regular Republicans, have no idea why they vote Republican. They just know they hate Democrats, right? And you have to speak to what their needs are, what their desires are as a person, not just politically, but just as a regular schmegular person on the street. And you have to, there's a way that you can talk to people and get them to slowly realize themselves, like, I want this thing, but the things that I'm doing to try to get it are actually moving me in the opposite direction.
Yeah.
Yeah. And one of the first steps in that is you actually have to have rapport. They have to actually see you as someone that they have some respect for, that they actually would listen to.
Yep.
You can't just walk in and start lecturing.
Yeah. They got to see you as an equal, at least.
Yeah.
Well, exactly. And part of that is not treating politics like WWE.
Exactly.
You cannot make it a wrestling show. Antithesis, if you disagree with me, I will throw you from the top rope. Don't make me.
I think there's a way to do that, but it's like the Overton window is so fucked up to where you have two people that are supposed to just be like wrestlers in the stable, right? But one person is saying, hey, can we please get the police to stop killing black people? And the other person is saying trans women aren't real women. And it's like pretending those two things are the same just for the sake of entertainment is sending a political message. And as much as people want to say it's just entertainment, bro, you're taking it too seriously. Like, it's like, nah, I kind of feel like you guys aren't taking it seriously enough, because entertainment is made by people and it's made for people. And these are the people that will look around at their audience and see that their shit is completely full of the most disgusting people imaginable. And it's like, my brother in Christ, you were the one that appealed to people's worst fucking impulses for clicks.
Yeah, I mean, the follow-up question that is begged there is, which part is entertaining, the dead black person or the dead trans person?
Right.
Because that's the culmination of that line of thinking.
Exactly.
Well, I mean, and that's the thing, and that's why people really need to Ert, you are women. Trans women are women, trans men are men, and NB people exist and are valid and are beautiful and are loved.
Facts. Neo-pronouns.
No, I have not been doing some. Exactly. Xenogenders are valid as fuck. And, and that's why I wanted to touch on, policy, like the importance of policy in these different groups, as well as motherfucker, Beduism, I'm busy. I'm busy, but I'm getting to it. Don't you make me throw you off the top ring too. But yes, that's why it's important to really go over, policy of these different groups. Like, it's important to understand what your advocacy works towards. And it's important to understand the greater impact that you're having in your community.
Doing well, Ellie. I appreciate you coming through. I hope you feel better.
at the end of the day, everything in life is political. Everything in life everything that the light touches is politics. And, I don't think enough people really understand that. And people just think that showing up and holding up a sign and, getting that Instagram selfie is advocacy, which it's not.
It's something. It's not nothing, but it's not enough at the end of the day.
Well, exactly. I mean, that's why, for example, Jon Stewart's rally to restore sanity didn't really do much in the long run, because that wasn't really meaningful in terms of effectuating enough change. As an example,
Wither King actually just said something I'd never thought about before, but like Wither King just said politics is how power is being levied. So politics being your outlet for entertainment has in the background of that action essentially smiling as someone stabs you in the back. And that's true. Like, you're either laughing because you're the boot or you're laughing because you're getting stomped. Like, it's just, there's no two ways about it.
Yeah. And I mean, that's a sad thing there. And fuck, I completely lost my train of thought. Oh yeah, that's right. So, something that I learned from just being a nerd and reading books is that when it comes, specifically from what Professor Kendi has said, like the thing about power is that it's never given willingly. And this is like basic shit.
Power seeds nothing without a demand.
Exactly. Power sees nothing without a demand, and power acts irrationally in order to get to its best interest. So, racist policies are often pushed, as an example, by power because it's in power's best interest to do that in order to maintain their stranglehold on society. But enough prolonged action,
07, comrade,
pushing and pushing and pushing and pushing and pushing against that eventually incentivizes power to adopt an anti-racist policy in order to, maintain its authority and, make itself look good in the eyes of the people.
We were all in the liberal pipeline. Don't be ashamed.
So, politics being related, or politics being your relationship to power, is important to consider. And I'm sorry if I butchered the sentiment, Wither, but I appreciate you bringing that up, because that's actually a really good point. Because, the worst thing that you can do is forget that the worst thing that you can do in terms of, engaging in politics is forgetting that power dynamic exists.
Yep. But I mean, I feel like a lot of people who do that have that in their regular lives, right? Where they think that we live in this post-racial society, and it's because I was just talking to Ellie. Like, you can't really be ashamed of a lot of the liberal shit that we believe when we were a teenager, because we're all in that pipeline, even in our best days, right? So like, we all came up thinking that fucking the Pilgrims came and hung out with the Native Americans, the indigenous people, and invented Thanksgiving, and they were all buddies. And then some other stuff happened that wasn't that great, but it was over. And then slavery happened, and it sucked, but it was all over. And then segregation happened, and Martin Luther King Jr. ended it. And now anything bad that happens to you is your fault. Like, we've all been in that pipeline. Like, so
Oh yeah,
it's easy. Even if you think of yourself as what was this label a lot of these grifters like sockdem, like even if you think you're a sockdem or whatever, it's really easy to fall into that trap just because that's baseline American propaganda.
So
sorry, I almost vomited in my mouth there.
I wanted to bring up a little bit of and this is something that I'm going to expand on in the video essay, but I wanted to touch on a little bit of a butterfly effect, which is related to the Food Not Bombs mission, related to prison, etc. And that is, so one of the things that I decided to do when I started getting involved with reading and internalizing abolitionist literature was I was constantly pushed by, some other by liberals who weren't on board with that about, well, what about murderers? We can't just let them run free. So
Oh
I
God.
decided I'm going to be a pen pal with a murderer.
Oh
So I
wow.
started doing that, and so I've been
Dude, based.
writing through Connect Network with a man named Derek Davis, who's been serving a life sentence since the 90s for
Sheesh.
2 homicides. And he wrote a book, and this is a little bit from the book, a little bit from conversations with him.
Hold it
But
up just a second, Frakkle. You're getting a little crunchy and
You're
robotic.
going
oh, sorry.
RoboCop for a minute.
Okay, am I better now?
No cops allowed.
Yo, say something.
Something.
Okay, yeah, there you go.
Okay, so I don't know where to cut off, but
He had
I
written a book.
yeah, he wrote a book. So this is a little bit from reading his book and a little bit from just conversations with him. But his story begins at 13 years old, where he he is hungry on the regular. Typically has
That's
like
true, Squid.
maybe
And what up,
fries with
Wyatt?
condiment as his meal for the day, or a potato or something.
Yeah, Coomer Police. That
Sometimes
shit is
goes a
hard.
day or two without a solid meal. His mother is extremely distressed about the fact that she really can't provide for him and his and her other children. So she's constantly fighting depression and such. Now, he goes out one day with $1 in his pocket to get an egg roll.
That's true, Adam,
And
and a
he
lot of it is motivated by poverty.
approached. This is 13 years old. I want to reiterate that. So put yourself in the mindset of your concerns at 13 years old, and then compare and contrast them here.
Holy shit.
He goes out with $1 in his pocket to just try and get an egg roll. And he's approached by some people from his neighborhood who are just checking up on him and hear about what he's dealing with. Give him $20. Start like befriending him and treating him like an adult. So he's a 13-year-old kid, not great judgment, but he just got $20 and is being
Talking
treated
about abolition now.
with some camaraderie. This is his introduction to drug dealing.
Right.
I cannot, for the life of me, fault him for that transition. This leads through, the next several years of learning to use that trade that they teach him to make some money, to bring home, to actually alleviate some of the food insecurity at home.
Especially for his siblings, yeah.
Yeah, for his siblings, for
Yeah.
especially his sister, he's the most concerned with, but also just to help out his mother, who's constantly upset about this situation. In the course of things, drug dealing ends up bloody. By 17, he killed someone in retaliation for a rival group killing one of his group. And again, this isn't a matter of saying, oh, he did everything right or he did everything wrong. These are human stories. And the fact that every single person who's up there in jail as a murderer, who just gets written off as they're just a murderer, they can't be trusted. There's a story behind every single situation.
Oh yeah.
This is a situation that for $20 to resolve some food insecurity at 13 years old, set in motion a very short life that put him in prison for life. It's a tragedy. That is a very perfect example of the failing of the system and what addressing food insecurity could have prevented. Because if his family had food secured, if they knew that they could have meals on the table, this whole thing would not have happened. There would be two additional young black men still alive. There would be one additional young black man, or I mean, not young at this point, but one additional black man who is no longer in prison. All of that would never have
What's
happened.
up, family tree?
Just because people got fed. That's it. That's all that would have required to resolve that whole situation.
Yep.
Fuck. Yeah. That is an excellent point. I'm so glad you brought that up.
He's an incredibly empathetic, kind, really good-hearted individual. He, it just,
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's just. Go on.
I was gonna say, Richard Bernard Moore has a very similar story. He was involved in a robbery. He's the individual who is, I believe it's in, I want to say North Carolina, where he's set to be executed by firing squad.
yeah, fuck.
Oh.
Yeah. Because he was involved in a robbery, and they're now realizing that the death penalty was probably harsh to begin with, because he didn't even have the murder weapon on him when he entered the store to rob it. What happened was the store clerk, I guess, pulled a firearm, and in the course of the struggle with trying himself not to get shot, he shot this other person and killed them.
Oh, crap.
But it being what it was, his 90s, all that stuff, black man, everything, he was sentenced to the death penalty. He's been on death row for like 30 some years. And, excuse me, like 20
That's
some
a
years.
felony murder, if I remember correctly.
Yeah. He's been on death row for like 20 some years, and the state is unable, there's a shortage of the drug that they use in lethal injections. So now the people who are on death row are forced to choose between, as in you choose or we choose for you, you choose between the electric chair or the firing squad. And it's just, the fact that we even have the death penalty at all is pretty barbaric to me, and we should abolish the death penalty just on principle.
Yeah.
But the carceral system is not, there's no room for things like reformation and restorative justice. That's not what it was designed for.
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's why the Innocence Project is so fucking important, honestly.
Crucial. Yeah. I talked to a few men who spent, two men who spent 24 years out of a 25 to life, and one individual who spent 18 years out of a 25 to life for murders that they didn't even commit. And that was one of the main things that we ended up talking about, was not just the prison industrial complex as it relates to capitalism and the motivation for it being that way, being a capitalist motivation, but the fact that your options are so limited, even if you did the crime and you're doing your time for reformation, or if you were a drug addict. This was how I got radicalized in jail. I got locked up for a traffic violation, and my cellie was this dude who was illin' so hard, like straight out of the movies. Like he was in the bed shaking. He had DTs bad as fuck, was dripping sweat, was like throwing up, and it was like I was moved to tears because I'd never seen that in real life before, and it fucked me up because I'm like, he needs help. Like, why is he in here with these like pedophiles and rapists and murderers and shit? And why am I in here for that matter? Like, we all are in here because we couldn't afford to meet the demands of our capitalistic lifestyles.
Yeah. I mean, for sure. And as Frakkle typed, crime is overwhelmingly driven by desperation created by needs not being met.
Absolutely.
And, and there are tons of things in our society that necessitate people being locked up. And I mean, one of the reasons that I did not choose to ultimately go down the path of a criminal attorney is because I just don't have, the constitution for it. so to speak. I just cannot.
That's
Like,
wild,
it takes
Adam.
very specific people to fill that kind of job. Hello, Autumn Run. And, one of the things that really bothers me about the criminal justice system is that it doesn't bring justice, but it's based, of course, on punitive measures that end up punishing people who desperately need help instead. Such as the person who is going through it really, really badly in your cell. I mean, as well as people who are insanely sick, like the person that Antithesis brought up in chat, where they were executed while they were severely schizophrenic,
There was a guy when I was getting processed that was like, I don't know if you guys have seen the movie Doom, the part in the movie Doom where the dude knows he's turned into a zombie, so he starts bashing his head against the glass until his head cracks.
Oh, yeah.
There was a guy that they just had that the CEOs were laughing at. Like, they were pointing at him and laughing and shit. And he was in the shoe, and you could see, like, through the window of him in there. And there was blood all in the window because he just kept bashing his fucking head against the window. And I was like, yeah, it was crazy. It was nuts. Yeah.
And that's why I'm glad that, honestly, that's why I'm glad I got to speak with both of y'all today, because I think more than anything, what this conversation is really, I think what this conversation really drove home is that, not only is it really easy to get involved with a local group, just in general, but it's also incredibly important in pushing for a policy that you believe in and to try and have some kind of impact on society that, really improves people's material conditions, whether it be criminal justice reform, feeding people and making sure that they don't have food insecurity, or just getting people the kind of help that they need instead of throwing them in a cage for the rest of their lives.
Right.
Because they did something out of desperation that they really did not need to do.
What I like to say is that politics is not just a spectator sport. Like, it's cool to get the entertainment or like the schadenfreude of the debate bro vibes of people screaming at each other on here or whatever. But if you have something that you would like to see happen in real life, you can make a change. There's probably people in your area that want the same thing, and all you got to do is link with each other, and you can move the needle, even if it's just a little bit. It's better than doing nothing, than just watching your favorite streamer make dunks and clips and sending him $5 every month. Like, your time and your energy would be much better spent doing stuff like, if you're going to send money anywhere, send it to Food Not Bombs. And, if you can't do that, or if you don't want to actually contribute by serving food or like cooking or anything like that, just tell people. Like, just say, hey, this is this organization, this is what they do. And like Kevin said, you just have conversations with people beyond just the spectacle of it all, because at the end of the day, it's a life and death situation for some people. Not all, maybe not others, but a lot of the topics that you're laughing about, that you're entertained by, are shit that people live and die behind every day.
Yeah, that is exactly true. So,
yeah, facts.
my
man,
wonderful, beautiful Poggers Party people, we have reached the conclusion of this discussion. I really appreciate both of you for joining me and just, talking about this really important work that both of you do, and, how people can get involved. And so
I'm always flattered to talk to you both, because I consider you both to be way fucking smarter than me. So it's always cool talking to you guys, especially either one of you individually. But this was fun. I like doing this.
I'll always appreciate talking to you, Endless. It's like I always find you very illuminating.
Well, exactly. I wouldn't consider anyone smarter than anyone else here. Intelligence is relative, and
True.
This has been a really cool conversation.
That's something the superior Kevin would say.
Shut the fuck up. I am not the superior Kevin. Stop it. So, God damn it. Gotta get
Hang
my
on,
flow going again.
I gotta answer a question really quick. Because Wyatt Martinson asked, "What can streamers, if anything, do to impact change?" And I feel like do what we're doing right now. Like
Yes.
my space, I say all the time whenever I get a raid or anything, like my platform is supposed to be a safe space for Black people, Black revolutionaries, Black revolutionary thought, and people sympathetic to that, and just build communities. Like not just make shit about what crazy shit can I put on here to get the most clicks and get the most eyeballs. Like actually focus on building a community. Like it doesn't have to be specifically toward a political end. Just get like-minded people that we're all based and we all fuck with each other. You guys are, I haven't even acknowledged chat. You guys are just going back and forth with each other. Squid's in here, Wyatt's in here, Coomer Police is in here. You guys are all based as fuck. I've seen a lot of you guys' content. Like as long as we chill with each other and build with each other and bounce off of each other, it'll be easy for us to suddenly do, hey, we're going to do a fundraiser at the end of the month for a community fridge. Be there, be square. Everybody send $1 in or whatever. That's the type, that's where I feel like we can have the most value for the least effort as streamers, is just turn those clicks into dollars for organizations that we actually fuck with. Comrade Gremlo, the fucking GOAT, raised over $3,000 for the Innocence Project a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
So it's just
Fucking real.
Yeah, that's my position on it, is just first and foremost, we just gotta have a safe space for us, because nobody on Twitch is talking about abolition. Nobody on Twitch is talking about the Black Panther vibes like that, or Blair Mountain, or Stonewall, or any of that type of shit. Everybody just wants dunks, and fucking everybody wants to talk to people like Lauren Southern and shit for whatever reason to get their fucking Twitch debate merit badge. Nobody's concerned about actual real shit. And then when it gets brought up that it's like that, they act confused or surprised that.
Gonna get to this soon.
Yeah, but sorry, I just wanted to answer that question really quick.
And I would say,
Oh no, you're good, brother.
I would add to that to understand that in doing that, you are accepting the fact that the audience of people on Twitch who are genuine about wanting to do the thing is going to be smaller than the audience on Twitch who want the drama. You're going to have
It's a feedback loop.
clicks. You just have to own that and say, this is where my values are, and I'm sticking to it anyway.
100%.
I have massive respect for you on that, Endless, because it is way too common.
I've sacrificed, like, when it comes to, because my original like I've been streaming for like, God, almost 10 years at this point. And at first I was like, I'll do it the way Destiny did it, where I just am really good at video games. Not many people, it's gotten so wild to the point where people don't even notice about me. I'm one of the best Mortal Kombat 11 players on planet fucking Earth. I'm one of the best Jax players on planet Earth. And I was like, people will come to see me do this, and then I'll drip feed the politics in. But after 2020 and a bunch of other stuff that I was witnessing, I said, you know what? I don't care about being Hassan and making $1 million, or being Destiny or whatever, and having $1 million endorsement deals or whatever. Like, I want to put the politics first, because that's what I think is important. And just because of what I'm talking about, even if people find it interesting, even if people fuck with it and want to come see it, it's not going to, the revolution will not be televised. You feel me? Like, it's not going to be something that gets floated up in the algorithm or anything like that.
Exactly. So, wonderful party people, in doing your outros, what I also want y'all to do is provide the wonderful people in chat with an organization that you would personally want them to connect with. So, Endless or Frakkle, we will start with you first.
Oh, God. So,
sorry to put you on the spot. This is like my first one of these, so I'm still trying to figure it out.
Yeah. So, I mean, obviously, Food Not Bombs, I've mentioned National Bailout, Innocence Project has been mentioned. But I would also say a lot of the recommendations that I would make, I can't make, because a lot of the organizations that I am really passionate about are local. They're exclusive to me.
I was just going to say that.
I can't tell people to get
Yeah.
involved with Orlando Freedom Fighters if they're not from Orlando. I can't tell people to get involved with the Zebra Coalition if they're not down in here in Florida, because that's a Florida LGBT.
I'm gonna
support network.
mention you, Algal.
So,
I'm gonna mention you. I'm gonna mention
Your
what-
local networks are. It's going to be easier for you to actually put your hands in that. Whereas larger organizations, it's, typically your involvement is often going to be limited to donations and stuff. So I'm a big proponent of getting involved in local networks, if you can find one. And if you can't find one, make one. Like Food Not Bombs has a great 7-step process for how to establish a chapter. National Bailout has literature on how to create and get a bail fund rolling. So there are these options as well. If you can't find a local chapter of something, to just get one going and get a few people that you're close with and just make the thing happen. Do the thing,
Right.
Exactly. And where can people find you on Twitch if you are still on Twitch?
I'm
Frakkle?
largely not, but I am at twitch.tv/Frakkle. I really am feeling YouTube, so my content will primarily be at youtube.com/Frakkle. That's FRAKKLE.
I gotcha. Oh, thank you for shouting him out. I appreciate
Oh,
that, Auntie. I was just about to ask you. And
The first video essay that I'm putting up is extremely ambitious. Maybe I should have started with something a little lighter, but it is intended to be kind of a comprehensive primer on police and prison abolition, to just get people that starting foundational information they need to really get their arms around it, because it is a very large topic that gets simplified down to just, abolish the police. But people need the actual understanding of what that means, why there's a call for it, what it actually would practically translate to, etc. So I'm trying to create this as a video that provides that foundation of information and provides some resources for further reading. And I appreciate Endless and people like Bink and Aston and such for helping with. There's several quotes throughout it that I've reached out to have them help with recording on.
I'm excited.
hell yeah. I'm really excited to see what you got going down the pipeline, Frakkle. That's
Likewise.
seriously awesome. And Endless, why don't you shout yourself out?
As far as organizations, I have the same problem. It's just like a consequence of the anarchist mindset, where you're constantly looking at things that are within arm's reach. And also, I am a Baltimorean. I have Maryland brain. So everything is Baltimore, everything Baltimore all the time. So for me, I would say organizations, if you really wanted to contribute the organizations that I care about, I'd list off Baltimore Food Not Bombs, obviously, Baltimore Food Rescue, Be More Community Fridge, We Keep Us Safe Collective, They Them Collective in DC. There's so many organizations that do mutual aid in terms of trying to rehouse people that have been evicted, or trans youth that are at risk, these types of things. It's just a matter of figure out what it is that you care about. And most of the time, it's something that is directly relatable to you. If you're a queer person, if you're a trans person, if you're a BIPOC, whatever, there's going to be some kind of organization that does advocacy for that marginalized group in your area. And just like Frakkle said, if there's not, get it done. Food Not Bombs has great 7-step process. If you want to build a community fridge, just like get a fridge. You and friends together find a place where you can get an outlet and put a fridge and let people put their food in there. Just something like that would help tremendously. And for the terminally online folks like I am, there's resources online as well. Woke.net Shout out to Algal, my pal. My stream, when I was doing the protest streaming back in 2020, was featured on woke.net. They're woke on Twitch, but woke.net is their website where you can see a lot of. It's kind of the community shrunk since it's not riot porn anymore, but you can still see demonstrations and protests in there every day for all kinds of things, from police brutality to anti-trans legislation or whatever. Wither King said mutualaidhub.com. There's that. There's definitely no shortage of information out there. You can follow people like me. I go live every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, specifically talking about stuff like this and fielding these kinds of questions of, I want more information, I want books to read, I want organizations to get involved with, so on and so forth. You could catch me at twitch.tv/endless cemetery. That's all E's, no A's. That's a common spelling error. I lost a spelling bee behind that, so I know the pain. But it's endless CEMETERY. And if you come to my Twitch, you'll find all of my other links, my Facebook, my Instagram, my TikTok, my YouTube, all that stuff. I'm on YouTube as well. That's where all my VODs live because Twitch sucks. And I also do a podcast with my housemate Robbie. Our podcast is called The Bolsheviks. That's BALTSHEVIKS. And we talk a lot about our most recent thing that we've been doing lately is across the country there's been just this radical wave of labor organization. And so a lot of the local businesses to Baltimore that are organizing, we've been doing interviews with organizers for them. We did a BMA interview. We did an interview with some people from MICA, the local art institute or the art college, about their labor union. We're trying to hunt down the Baltimore City Starbucks that just voted unanimously to unionize. There is a workers co-op, a black-owned workers co-op, to Harker Brothers Ice Cream that's been operating out of Baltimore that became a co-op for the first time during the pandemic. I've been trying to hunt them down and interview them, talk to them, and kind of pick their brain about some of the challenges and benefits of being a co-op, especially in this time of neo-feudalism, hyper-capitalism. But that's me. That's where my head is at. And a lot of what I do is just listening and sitting down with bass people like Frakkle, like KevinFM, like Bink Princess, Aston Mac, Seductive Seaweed, Critical Ace Theory, all these people that I'm learning from. And because I'm a fucking himbo, I'll translate a lot of the headier stuff to you all. And yeah, I'm trying to build a community, you know what I mean? I have my community here in Baltimore of my close friends that are all some kind of left, anarchists, Marxist, Leninists, whatever. But I see a niche that needs filled in this space here for this type of stuff, because the gatekeepers in the space are people who only want to see drama and bullshit. So we got to have our own here. So that's kind of where I'm coming from.
Fucking lootly. So, wonderful party people, members of the jury, I present to you two awesome, and super handsome content creators that you should definitely follow. So, go follow Endless Cemetery on Twitch, and go follow our based comrade Frakkle over at youtube.com. So I want to thank both of you so much for popping in here and, giving us your insight, just, willing to shoot the shit with me on this and just doing what you do.
Yeah, thanks for putting this together. Very much appreciated. And yeah, just on a personal note too, it is kind of addressing something that somewhat frustrated me after the protests and such dried up here, which was, okay, what do I do next? And I was able to find, a Food Not Bombs chapter, and through the course of things was able to, I think it was from Katarana's panel, was able to find Aston Mack and such. But like, as much as we say, just do the thing and make it sound easy, you do have to take those first steps, and it sometimes isn't immediately apparent what those first steps should be. So
The hardest part's to
hopefully,
start.
yeah, hopefully some
Yep.
part of this has been illuminating on what those first steps could be. And yeah,
Absolutely. And I really do appreciate, I mean, honestly, the hardest place is to start, and hopefully this conversation has helped some people like kind of get an idea of where to start off. And I definitely share that sentiment, Frakkle. I really do. So thank you both so much for coming on here. I hope to speak with y'all again very soon.
I'm
And I
sure we
hope to
will.
see y'all.
I'm sure we will.
Oh yeah. And I hope to also speak with y'all, or not speak with y'all, work with y'all in another fundraiser sometime soon too. Those are always the best.
I want to do a Baltimore, like a Be More community fridge fundraiser soon, but I'm trying to wait for all this other extraneous shit to calm down a little bit before I get back into that.
Oh, I feel ya. I totally feel ya. I mean, look, if you want another Kevin to paste on top of that,
The
just to
superior
like,
Kevin.
no, to act as a bit of subterfuge, then you could always just say that I'm doing it, and then peel the Band-Aid off. Aha! It was me, Kevin,
Bet.
Endless Cemetery Kevin. That didn't work as well as I thought it would.
But thank you, Kevin. I
Oh,
appreciate you.
Lord.
Thank you, Frakkle.
yeah.
Thank you both so much. So you both have a beautiful, beautiful rest of your evening, and we will speak again soon.
I'm sure.
Sounds good.
I'll talk to you later.
Later, y'all.
Peace. All right. You feel like we're going to attract a new audience to Twitch Politics? I feel that way because a lot of people like in my personal life that I know don't like video games, are not really into streams or anything like that. They just to support me, they've been checking me out and they like my content. So, but that's all for me for now. This isn't my normal streaming time. I usually, like I said, I go live on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday nights at 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I go for a couple hours, usually till like midnight or 1 a.m. I talk politics and news and stuff, and then I play video games. Sometimes I play Hunt Showdown. Sometimes I play Dead by Daylight. Sometimes I play Mortal Kombat 11. I play a bunch of different games, but this is my thing, man. I'm trying to build a community, and like I said, there's a niche needs to be filled. Nobody on Twitch Politics or Twitch Debate or any of that stuff is talking about these types of the things that we're talking about. They're not talking. They might be scratching the surface on things like police abolition or that sort of stuff, but it's very superficial. And there's very few actual base content creators that I've seen. Like some of these smaller creators coming up are gonna be the wave. I feel like people like Levelhead, people like Tofu Ghost, you know what I mean. Gremlo is amazing content creator, amazing streamer. Squid, fucking Jason Society, like all these other streamers that we're saying, fuck the drama, fuck the bullshit, fuck the clickbait. Let's do something real. Let's make some shit happen. It's going to be us. And even if it ain't us, we're going to have each other. We're going to be doing this together. And that's the most important part. So I appreciate y'all rocking with me for this long. Yeah, Tofu Ghost is dope. Tofu Ghost is dope. I'm a raid in the paradigm shift. So yeah, these are all people you'll see on my Twitter and stuff. You'll come across all of them. I'll raid into them. I'll host them, all that stuff. In fact, what I think I might even actually do is just come up with a list, like Endless Cemetery's list of base streamers. And it'll be, of course, shout out to my boy Talorx, fucking Ali is Crying, Seductive Seaweed, Critical Ace Theory, Paradigm Shift, who I'm about to raid into now, Alec Gunter, all these people that are up and coming, small time, but are into some real shit that you'll really enjoy. I'll make a list for y'all, but I'm gonna raid out. Bing Princess, what's happening? You caught me just about to raid into Paradigm. So I'll see you folks tomorrow night at 10 p.m. And I'm looking forward to building with you and seeing what new world we can make together. All right, you all.